Notice is hereby given of the regular meeting of the Board of Education of the Town of Westfield in the County of Union, New Jersey at 6 p.m. on the evening of Tuesday, January 17th, 2023 in Cafeteria B of Westfield High School, 550 Dorian Road, Westfield, New Jersey. The board will move immediately into private session to discuss matters rendered confidential by state and federal law, including legal matters, personnel matters, and harassment, intimidation, and bullying incidents. The public portion of the meeting will resume at 7 p.m. The purpose of the meeting is to transact the regular business of the board and to transact any other business to come properly before the board. This is to advise to the general public and to instruct it to be recorded in the minutes that in compliance with Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, entitled the Open Public Meetings Act, the Westfield School Board on Thursday, January 12th, 2023, caused to be posted at the office of the Board of Education located at 302 Elm Street, Westfield, New Jersey, and delivered to the Westfield Leader, the Star Ledger, the Westfield Library, Town Clerk of Westfield, Tap into Westfield, and Patch.com, a meeting notice setting forth the time, date, and location of this meeting. Patty, can I have a roll call?
Sahar Aziz. Rob Bonaccio.
Here.
Michael Beelan.
Here.
Brendan Galligan.
Here.
Layla Morelli.
Here.
Sonal Patel.
Here.
Kristen Sonic Schmeltz.
Here.
Mary Wickens.
Here.
All right. Mike, will you lead us in the flag salute tonight?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mike. Ready? Yep. All right. We are now going to swear in our new board member, Kent Diamond.
What do you want me to say?
Right in front.
Can you please raise your right hand and repeat after me? I state your name.
I, Kent Diamond,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance
and I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the same
to the same
and to the governments established
and to the government established
in the United States and this state
in the United States and this state
under the authority of the people.
under the authority of the people,
So help me God.
so help me God.
I state your name.
I, Kent Diamond,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law
that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law
for the office of member of a Board of Education,
for the office of member of a Board of Education,
and that I am not disqualified as a voter
and that I am not disqualified as a voter
pursuant to
pursuant to
RS
RS
19:4-1,
4-1,
nor disqualified due to conviction
nor disqualified due to conviction
of a crime or offense listed
of a crime or offense listed
in NJS
in NJS
18A:12-1,
18A:12-1,
and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly
and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly
perform all duties of that office
perform all duties of that office
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my abilities.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you. You need to check.
Yes.
Welcome back, Kent.
Thank you.
All right. I ask the board to approve the following resolution. Resolved that the Board of Education move into private session for the purposes of discussing matters rendered confidential by state and federal law, including legal matters, personnel matters, and harassment, intimidation, and bullying incidents. And be that further resolved that any discussion held by the board which need not remain confidential, and the results of the discussion will be made public as soon as practicable. Can I have a second? Thank you, Mike. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We are in private session. Mike.
Microphones?
Hello?
Be green, yeah. Then you can turn the button off to make it red.
Why did it go off?
All right. All right, we thank you all for bearing with us while we were in executive session. We are now going to resume the public portion of our meeting. All right, guys, we're resuming. As I mentioned at our last meeting in December, our Westfield High School fall athletic teams performed so well that we needed to divide the recognition between two board meetings. On December 13th, we welcomed members of the girls and boys cross-country teams and the girls volleyball team. Tonight it is our pleasure to honor the girls tennis team and the boys soccer team. For the third consecutive year, the girls tennis team has taken home the North 2 Group 4 sectional title. I utilized the excellent coverage by the High's Eye sports reporters, stating that the girls tennis team finished the season with a record 15-4, placed second overall in the Union County Conference Watching Division, and was named the ninth best team in New Jersey by NJ.com. Before I ask Coach Jordan to share a few more details about your phenomenal season, I'll call your name in alphabetical order. Please come up to accept a certificate of appreciation from Superintendent Dr. Raymond Gonzalez and proceed to the stage to wait for a photograph. Susanna Cohen. Okay, thank you. Valentina Casenza. Natalie Dabrowski. Lola Gagan. Emily Chabanoff. Emerson Stoller. Annika Vasuna. Bianca Vasuna. Madison Wright. Sophia Shing. Assistant Coach Brooke Stites. And Head Coach Samantha Jordan. Coach Jordan would like to say a few words about your team.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Samantha Jordan. First of all, I'd like to thank the Board of Ed for acknowledging our tremendous season. I'm so proud of these girls. I just wanted to go over, I know you already did, just a little bit about our season. We were 15-4. We were 8-1 in the UCC Watchung Division, 2022 conference champions. We placed second in the Union County tournament. And we placed second in the North Jersey Section 2 Group 4 state tournament, losing to Marlborough, who's number 2 in the state, and they had a record of 44-0. That was a huge accomplishment for us. I'd like to acknowledge Savannah Cohen at first singles. She made third team All-State. Emmy Stoller and Natalie Dabowski made third team Group 4, and we were ranked 9th in New Jersey. And I just want to say I'm extremely proud of these girls. They worked so hard over the season, and they absolutely deserve this. So thank you.
Thank you for joining us tonight, and again, congratulations to all of you. Now we welcome the boys soccer team, who captured the North 2 Group 4 sectional title for the first time since 2001. The Blue Devils also took home the Union County Conference Watching Division title and went on to win their second straight Union County tournament title. I'll leave it to Coach Shaw to share some highlights of the season, but first I'll call up the players in alphabetical order to accept a certificate from Dr. Gonzalez. Please proceed to the stage for a photograph. Derek Azevedo. Ryan Birch. Michael Blake. Anthony Bushio. Liam Carno. Evan Crozier. Cooper Del Gandino. Daniel D'Souza. Noah Fisher. Ty Flannery. Emmanuel Gayanillo. William Holland. Henry Iannuzzi. Drew Kornfeld. Michael Lieberman. Benedict Nimatezera. Brendan Percival. Nico Pierce. Zachary Purcell. James Reagan. David Severinsky. Ian Schultz. Adam Tukasinski. Ethan Wade. Assistant Coach Demont Hurd. And Head Coach Eric Shaw. Coach Shaw, I invite you to the podium to say a few words about your team season.
Again, thanks to the board for having us and recognizing our success this year. My 10th year as at the helm of the boys program, and I get the question of why this year. As you can see, the chattiness back there, but I think the love for that they had for each other brought out the difference on the field during the course of the year. The other thing I think was the leadership from our two captains that kind of made the difference as well. We finished the year 18-2-1. Yes, won the counties for the second year. And won the state championship for the first time in 21 years. So obviously all that leadership and the enjoyment that they had for each other and the enjoyment that we had around the love in the game and playing, I think that's what drove us to success this year. So we're looking to do the same thing next year in the future. So again, thanks for having us.
And just a final thank you to all of our student athletes, their coaches, and families for joining us tonight to celebrate your tremendous seasons. All right, we'll start up with announcements. Mary, do you have any announcements tonight?
I have a really long one. I think I have the longest one of the night. Okay. 25 Westfield High School student musicians were selected to perform with regional choral and band ensembles in January, 21 with the Region 2 chorus, and 4 with the Region 2 band. The following choir students were accepted into the 2023 Central Jersey Music Educators Association Region 2 Chorus with 8 top scorers, including 4 who finished first or second in their sections. For treble chorus, there was Giada Camarano, grade 11, Kara Kogan, grade 11, 5th in region for soprano 1, Kelsey Dix, grade 9, Hannah Forbes, grade 9, Sophie Havens, grade 12, 2nd in region for soprano 1, Rachel Clem, grade 11, 2nd in region for soprano 2, Sarah LaMonica, grade 12, and Leah Turetsky, grade 9. For mixed chorus, there was Aprameyo Chakravarti, grade 12, fourth in region for bass 2. Caitlin D'Alessandro, grade 10. Natalie Gonzalez, grade 11. Samuel Laitman, grade 12. Kira Lensner, grade 10. Skylar Lipkin, grade 11, third in region for tenor 2. Olivia Marino, grade 10. Kieran Patel, grade 9. Nadia Rigo, grade 10, first in region for alto 2. Max Recitano, grade 12. Mia Sacco, grade 9. Keaton Shepard, grade 10, fourth in region for tenor 1. And Ethan Young, grade 11, second in region for bass 2. And the following 4 student musicians will perform with the 2023 Region 2 Band. Nolan Daly, grade 11, trumpet. Charlie Hugh, grade 11, oboe. Liliana Lincoln, grade 9, clarinet. Sarah Lincoln, grade 11, contrabass clarinet. The end.
Thank you, Mary. Sonal?
This is a reminder that online registration for kindergarten and grade 1 is open for the 2023-2024 school year. Kindergarten registration is for all children who are residents of Westfield reaching the age of 5 on or before October 1st, 2023. First grade registration is for all children who are residents of Westfield reaching the age of 6 on or before October 1st, 2023, and have not yet attended the Westfield Public Schools. Detailed instructions and forms are available under Student Registration at www.westfieldnjk12.org. A list of school contacts is available on the student registration website for anyone with questions about the registration process.
Thank you, Sonal. Layla?
As previously announced, the Westfield Public School District has unveiled a new app for mobile phones. With the app, you can stay up to date with access to events, school news, student stories, and more. The app is free and customizable by school, where you can sign up to receive push notifications of important school-specific reminders. For those who have not yet downloaded our free mobile app, search Westfield Public Schools, New Jersey in the App Store or Google Play, depending upon your device. Additional instructions, including a brief video on how to customize your experience, are posted under the news section on the district and school websites.
Thank you, Layla. Kent?
Thank you. The 2021-2022 staff of Westfield High School's Optic Magazine received the first place award in the High School Magazine's national category from the American Scholastic Press Association. Congratulations to our student journalist and advisor, Sean McDonald, on this prestigious recognition.
Thank you, Kent. Sure.
The PTC Gifted Education Committee is offering a virtual seminar entitled Making the Most of Your Summer this Thursday, in 2 days, January 19th, from 7 to 9 p.m. Are you starting to think about how to spend your summer after sophomore or junior year? Are you overwhelmed by all the options? Are you wondering how colleges view participation in pre-college programs and service trips? If you answered yes to any of these questions, this virtual seminar for parents and students is for you. The link to register is posted on the community flyers page on the district and school website. And happy MLK Day to everyone celebrating yesterday. Thank you.
Thank you, Sahar. Rob?
The Partnership for a Drug-Free New Jersey will hold a free webinar for Knockout Opioid Abuse Day on Thursday, January 26th, 2023 at 11 a.m. The keynote speaker is Dr. Lewis Nelson, a board-certified physician in emergency medicine at Rutgers, New Jersey Medical School. Those interested in attending the virtual forum may register at knockoutday, all one word, .drugfreenj, all one word, .org/events.
Thank you, Rob. Kristen?
Help build Westfield and Lego. Join Westfield Recreation Department in partnership with the Historic Preservation Commission on February 11th from 1 to 3 p.m. in Cafeteria B of Westfield High School to recreate over 50 iconic town buildings from 60,000 Lego bricks. Registration for Build Westfield is $40 per team, up to 4 people including at least 1 adult, and is limited to 50 families. The program is ideal for 6 and up. Visit westfieldnj.gov and use the search term Recreation Programs Catalog for enrollment and other information. You can also contact Westfield Recreation at recreation@westfieldnj.gov or 908-789-4080. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. Mike?
Thank you. The Friends of the Westfield Memorial Library have announced a series of winter weekend programs for children and families. A schedule and more details are available at fwmlnj.org. That's Friends Westfield Memorial Library NJ.org. And on the community flyers page on the district and school website. And then the second announcement, the New Jersey State Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force invites parents to attend a presentation on the importance of keeping children safe online. The presentation will take place on Thursday, January 26th, from 7 to 8:30 p.m. at Ederson Intermediate School at 800 Royal Avenue in Westfield. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. The next regular public meeting of the Board of Education will be on Tuesday, February 7th in Cafeteria B at Westfield High School beginning at 7 p.m. The meeting will be live streamed via the district YouTube channel, which viewers can access on the board tab on the district website. The complete agenda will be available on Friday, February 3rd, also on the board tab. And with that, I turn the meeting over to Dr. Gonzalez for the district administration report.
Thank you. This evening, we will be presenting the first of a series of approximately 3 presentations regarding the development of our 2023-2024 budget development. But prior to that presentation this evening, I do have a few additional items to reference. The first of which is regarding School Board Recognition Month. January is School Board Recognition Month, and truly every month should be considered School Board Recognition Month. However, we don't always get the chance to take the opportunity to celebrate the individuals on the dais with me. The many hours these 9 volunteers devote in support of our students and staff goes well beyond these public board meetings. There are monthly committee meetings to review district policies, curricula, finances, and other matters as they relate to the district. They attend training, workshops, and conferences to further educate themselves about their roles as school board members and advocates for the school district, and they serve as board liaisons to our PTOs and many of our community partners. All of this while juggling their own career and family commitments. On behalf of the Westfield Public Schools community, please join me in extending sincere appreciation to the entire Board of Education for their thoughtful and dedicated service. And there's a huge applause from everyone watching online, so I just wanted to. We also have an update regarding our strategic planning work that has been taking place since the start of the school year. Our Strategic Planning Council continues to make steady progress in developing our 5-year blueprint outlining the district's priorities for 2023 to 2028. The Strategic Planning Council members met for a 3rd time on January 9th to examine the district's vision in the areas of teaching and learning, safety and wellness, finance and facilities, leadership and governance, and community and culture. At previous meetings, the members drafted value statements and proposed slight changes to the district mission statement. Please visit Strategic Plan 2328, posted under District Information on the district website for more information, including a form you can use to submit your feedback on the proposed changes to the mission statement. We will be sharing the draft value and vision statements in future communications, and will seek your further input as well. The Strategic Planning Council meets again on January 30th, February 15th, and March 20th. To conclude this portion of my report this evening, I do want to provide a brief follow-up to the news announced on January 6th by the Westfield Police Department regarding a controlled substance incident involving one of our teachers. Both the principal and I have provided messages to the school and district community, as well as responding to those who reached out with concerns. And as we explained As much as we understand the desire by the school community to know more, we are bound by confidentiality in matters regarding school employees, and furthermore, as a police matter, members of law enforcement may provide details as they see fit. Unfortunately, we cannot. Nevertheless, while there are details I cannot share, I do want to reassure everyone that after instances such as this, as a district, we always reflect on where we can improve our practices and protocols to keep our schools safe. We are reviewing our policies, staff training regarding our professional obligations, and how to recognize those red flags and warning indicators. We're also examining ways we can enhance our school culture in all of our schools and our entire school community to make sure that everyone feels safe and comfortable reporting something if they see something they are concerned about. And we are also exploring tools and programs that could help facilitate all of the above so that we can keep our students and staff feeling safe. That concludes my superintendent report this evening. Next, I would like to move on to our 2023-2024 budget development update, at which time I will be joined by Patty Ramos, our new business administrator. The budget presentation that we will be presenting this evening is posted on the district website along with the agenda for this evening. So individuals who would like to see the presentation slides could also review them there after the meeting is over as well. Just need to balance two computer screens, okay. Okay, so this evening, just to give an overview of how the presentation will proceed, we'll begin with just a quick recap regarding the budget development of last year that really helps to frame the reason why we find ourselves having a conversation this year about an April vote presented to the public. In addition, we want to use this presentation as a means of setting a consistent foundation and understanding of how school district budgets are developed and what resources we have available to us to support the enactment of that budget. Next, I'd like to revisit and discuss with the board our priorities, our guiding principles that will go into the development of this budget, followed by a more specific, detailed conversation regarding the actual budget vote that will take place in April. And then, of course, moving into the end of the presentation, we'll talk about the next steps so that we all proceed on the same page. So if we recall from last year, our discussion really tried to go back as far as 10, even 12 years ago, at which time the district had a opportunity to continue to develop budgets as they saw fit, and then use those budgets to support all of the initiatives and endeavors of the school district. Once the development of that budget was approved by the Board of Education, that budget was then presented to the taxpayers so that they can vote on whether or not to support that budget. So it was something that for every year prior to 2010 was somewhat of a norm. It was a process that was built upon a conversation that it took place between the administration and the board, but then that conversation still required the support of the community in order to see that budget finalized for the following year. Up to that point, for a period of approximately 10 years, at least in our calculations, the average tax levy increase associated with those budgets was approximately 4.9%. And then in 2011, there were some pretty significant changes, and those changes resulted in a reduction of state aid by nearly 65% across the board. Reductions in the case of Westfield resulted in about $4 million in cuts that were made to the district operating budget. And then from that point forward, the relief came when districts had the opportunity to be able to develop budgets moving forward without having to go to voter approval, but in doing so would have required that the tax levy increase does not exceed more than 2%. And again, I think it's important to note, prior to that, our average tax levy increase was about 4.9%. So in order to proceed into this next phase of uncertainty with school funding and state aid, the Westfield School District, along with the vast majority of other school districts, moved their board election, the Board of Education election, to November, thus eliminating the vote on the budget and locking the school district into a 2% tax levy cap every year that they would develop their budget. Keeping in mind, there were occasional opportunities for that 2% to be adjusted, and we'll see that later in a future slide, based upon whether it be changes in healthcare or enrollments that would have allowed us to exercise a waiver and exceed that 2%. But by and large, we still remained within that cap. So over the next 9 years, 10 years, the school district continued to balance the 2% tax levy cap with the increasing costs of healthcare, utilities, the ability to maintain proper wages and salaries for our staff in order to be able to attract and retain talent in our school district. We're able to make those adjustments in the way budgets had been developed. And in doing so, we're able to present balanced budgets that exercise the 2% tax levy, all other available revenue sources, with a budget that allowed us to maintain our existing programs and be able to provide the quality education that we know is possible here in our school district. Then last year came around, and unfortunately what we discovered was that as a result of many, many years of making it work, we reached the point where our expenditures, the amount that it was going to cost to properly run our school district, unfortunately outpaced the sources of revenue that we would receive in order to provide the necessary supports. And as you recall, last year, that resulted in a major challenge for this school district that we hadn't faced in quite some time. And that result was trying to figure out how to create a balanced budget and make unfortunate cuts to our staffing and our budget in order to bring both our expenditures and revenues into balance. By the end of the year, we realized that this was not going to be sustainable, and it was something that we certainly did not want to continue moving forward. As I referenced before, our tax levy increases over the course of several years ranged from a low of 3.4% at the turn of the 1999-2000 school year, but also went as high as 7.9% increase 2 years later in 2001 and 2002. But overall, during that 10 to 11-year time period, we saw an average of about 4.9%. And then after that, you see on the slide before you a stark change in how our tax levy had been impacted, with the majority of those years being flat at 2%, and as I mentioned earlier, occasionally being able to adjust that tax levy with the acceptable waivers authorized by the state. Once again, just as a recap, we reached the point where last year, when we took our status quo budget, once again, the idea was that we presented a budget initially that looked at how we could just maintain the level of staffing, maintain the level of programs, maintain everything as is for the next year. And in doing so, that resulted in our budget exceeding our revenue by $2.3 million. When the school year came to a close, after the budget had been passed and the difficult decisions had been made, we also recognized that this was something that was not going to be limited to 1 year. So I add this slide because, as ominous as it may appear, we wanted to project what the possibility would be if this were to continue one more year. If we were to look at a 2% tax levy increase, if we were to look at flat state aid and potentially anywhere between a 7% to a 12% increase in health insurance, what impact would that have on our school district's ability to maintain a balanced budget? And at that time, our projections suggested that our tax levy would increase once again beyond the 2%. Ranging anywhere from 4.9% to 6%. And that's assuming flat state aid and assuming increases in health care as I described. So the Board of Education and the administration over time decided that there was going to need to be a change, and a change that we would have to make moving into this year. And that's when we made the decision to move to an April public vote. In order to escape the conundrum, the challenge of being able to fund those programs, fund all of our initiatives, and to do so with the requisite amount of resources, we would need to exceed our 2%. And the only way to do that was to present the budget back to the taxpayers for a vote. We'll talk more about the specifics of that vote later on. So once again, that's where we find ourselves moving into this school year. So I'm going to hand it over to Patty Ramos to take it from here.
All right. So as Ray said, we've moved to the April public vote. There's still a lot of unknowns at this point. We don't know what our state aid number will be. We don't know if there will be any adjustments to the 2% cap. So that's where we're still kind of reviewing what's been done in the past, going forward, looking at what our expenditures are, because we know what that will be. But in terms of revenues, we're still waiting on information from the state. So now we go to the next slide. And the anatomy of the budget, so now we get down to how everything works together. We work with different stakeholders to put this budget together. Anything from community input at board meetings to emails that we receive, PTC meetings, any kind of input, we listen to that. We take it into consideration. We're in the middle of our strategic plan that also plays into how our budget is going to be developed, formed. We're taking into account information that's come from our stakeholder meetings there. We meet with our principals, our cabinet staff, to go over the school-based issues, things that they need. Of course, there's federal and state mandates. We're required to meet those. Whether or not they're funded, we're still required to meet them. And then we have our district goals. Where do we want to move forward? What are we looking to accomplish with our budget? So all of that plays into this. Then we get into the actual nuts and bolts of the budget, how the operating budget is spent. As you can see, 81% of our budget, and this is a norm across the state of New Jersey, so it's not just, Westfield is spending 80% on salary and benefits, goes towards our staff. That's, how the district is made up. Then you see the 7% is out of district tuition special services. These are based on IEPs, individual education plans that are mandated. Our transportation and insurance also mandated. And then you can see we're only spending 2% on supplies, purchase services, materials, another 2% on cleaning, repair, maintenance, technology. And then our outside providers, our behaviorists, OT, PT, those are also mandated by a child's IEP through special education. And then we have our legal costs also in there. Now let's break down the biggest part of our budget, the staffing. As you can see, 46.5% is teachers, regular ed teachers. Another 30% is special ed teachers and paras. So that's 76% is directly in the classroom all day long with children. Then we come down to nurses, guidance, media specialists are another 6.7%. Principals, supervisors, and all the support staff in our district make up another 6%. And then operations and maintenance, a little over 10% to keep the district running. Again, these are numbers that you would see if you look at Board of Eds across the state. It's not unusual to a district. This is, the majority is staff that are present in the classroom with students. And then we get into facts about our budget expenditures. So now you saw that the majority of our budget is salaries. Salary increases are over 2%. That is not abnormal across the state. That is what we are settling at. We have very good contracts in Westfield. They're not above norms. They're within line with everything else. We're self-insured, which has saved the district money over the years, but also that is increasing. After COVID, we saw last year there was a lot of struggle with the health expenses. This year, thankfully, it looks to be stabilizing. But again, by stabilizing, we're talking close to 7% increase. That's a stable number versus what you were looking at last year with the double-digit increase. Our transportation costs continue to increase. We've been talking to different people at the state level about this. They're exceeding the 2% on their increases, which again, we're mandated to provide these transportation to out-of-district placements, to children residing over 2 miles from the school, and the costs are going up above 2%. A special education cost mandate in IEPs also rising above 2%. Every year, we get a list from the state of all of our special ed schools with the tuition rates. They're anywhere from 3 to 5%. Some could be more than that. You don't see ones with 1% or 2%. And then we have other contractual costs, the utilities to run the buildings, insurance, Social Security. None of these costs are under 2%. So it's hard to keep a budget going when you have this much mandated costs that are over the 2%. So now let's get into the other side of it. Where do we get the money to fund this? In Westfield, 92% of the budget comes from the local tax levy. This is, again, in line with districts similar to Westfield. Then we have roughly between extraordinary aid and state aid, about 6% comes from the state. Then we have a very small portion in our tuition if we have any special education students attending Westfield that we charge, student activity fees and miscellaneous, and our interest makes up a small percentage. And then we also have fund balance that we utilize. So what that is, in any given year, we have our revenues and expenditures. If our expenditures come in less than our revenues, we realize fund balance, money that's left over. This money, usually it comes from, let's say, extraordinary aid. The state does not tell us how much we will get every year. We have to apply for that. It's not a given that they will fund all of that. So it's you have to err on the side of caution when budgeting that revenue. So that's where we make up a good portion of our fund balance each year. And then part of that goes back to the taxpayers. And then anything in addition, we would hope to fund our capital reserves to try to maintain our buildings, our maintenance reserves, other reserves within the district. Then we get into, as Ray said, our history of tax levy increases. As you can see, before the state went to the 2% cap, that we were averaging about 4.9%, which again is in line with other districts in the state. And then you can see after that point, anything that's above the 2% are years, as Ray mentioned, where we got adjustments to the cap, which would have been for enrollment or healthcare costs. So our key budget information, just to recap, 92% of our general fund revenues are from the tax levy. We are expecting adjustments to the 2% cap. We don't know what they will be yet. I am hearing that we will get a health benefit adjustment since state health benefits went up by 15%. That number will not be released till later, possibly the end of February or March. State aid information is not expected until March 2nd. The governor gives his speech that last, I think it's February 28th, and we'll receive the state aid information on March 2nd. So until we get that, I would hope that we would also receive an additional state aid, because the state has been phasing us in to get to our full amount, which we're about $1 million under still. So they said we would have full funding within the next 2 years. That's, it's up to them whether or not they hold to that. So we are expecting some amount more for state aid. Our tentative budget for 23-24, just to let the board know, will have to be approved on March 7th to submit to the state for approval. So that doesn't give us a lot of time, which is why we're starting these presentations so early, and we're going to be going through numbers in February, because we will not get state aid until March 2nd, and the board will have to vote, to submit the budget, the tentative budget, on March 7th.
Okay, at this time, I'd just like to just revisit our priorities that were established last year as we developed the budget and as we faced the unenviable position to have to cut the budget. There are three priorities that we used to guide our decision-making, and one was we wanted to the extent possible, avoid impact on students. We wanted to maintain existing programs and offerings, and we wanted to remain within class size and course enrollment guidelines. Those are set in policy. Those were our targets. Those were the things that we wanted to be able to adhere to as close as possible, and made decisions accordingly. Moving into this year, we'd like to apply the same, and we've applied the same principles in how we've developed the budget thus far. So what we've done is we've worked with all the administrators at the school level and at the department level so that they could present to us really a status quo budget. They wanted to be able to make sure that we did not have to face cuts, so that we wanted to be able to present a budget to the Board of Education that would once again accomplish these priorities. Keeping that in mind, we also recognize that there is an opportunity moving into an April election to see our district not only stay above water, maintain the status quo, but actually add the fourth bullet, which is to begin to expand programs and offerings. So we asked our principals, we asked our administrators, we asked our department heads to start thinking about how we can start building on those areas of our school district, identifying those areas of need, and then start to develop, I don't want to say wish lists that are not steeped in reality, but those things that we have not been able to include in budgets because we just didn't have the means to do so. So within the development of our budget, what you'll see is that the first three priorities, the maintenance of our existing resources that we have this year, based upon our current budget projections, that would still require an increase above the 2% threshold, which is not unlike what we've been mentioning already. But that projection that was included at the end of last year's budget presentation, at the finality of the school budget development for last year, is now holding true this year. So what you see on the slide before you is a simple illustration that shows, in order to fit what we have in this year's budget, in next year's budget, it would require that we increase the tax levy up to the allowable 2%, and then on top of that, approximately an additional 2.57%. And again, these are all projections, as has been stated over and over again. We do not have the final state aid figures. We do not have the final projections for our health insurance. So those figures could certainly impact this in very significant ways, but we also don't know whether or not we will, or to the extent that we will receive a health care adjustment that would allow us to have the first portion of that bar graph actually exceed 2%. So it might be 2.5%, it might be 2 3/4. But the idea is, for illustrative purposes, we wanted to be able to demonstrate, just to be able to maintain the status quo, we would still require that vote of support by the public to be able to approve the excess over the 2%. What you don't see here are those items reflected that I shared before, which are those efforts for the administration to be able to expand programs and supports for our students. We did not want to present that in this first presentation because we wanted to have a conversation with the board to make sure we're all on the same page. But without a doubt, in order to maintain what we have, in order to avoid what we experienced last spring, what you see is the result of that. So what that means is the board and the administration will work to develop a budget that will keep our programs at a minimum. And hopefully expand them. The rest will be up to our taxpayers to be able to support that through their vote and then determine the outcomes for next school year. So with that in mind, we move into the budget election. So at this time, I'm going to ask Ms. Ramos again to just walk us through some of the logistics.
So the budget election will be on April 25th. The polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. The ballot format is going to be 2 questions. So the first question is going to read, do you vote for the general fund tax levy at whatever the 2% cap is plus any allowable adjustments that we receive? So if we receive a healthcare adjustment, the total number may end up being 2.4%, 2.5%. But on the actual ballot, they will not see that. They're just going to see the total tax levy. Then the second question will be any expenditures that exceed that 2% cap. So that question would read something to maintain X, Y, and Z, and then possibly to, if we agree to add other programming, and to add X, Y, and Z programming. And the important thing is that the majority of this second question is going to be to maintain current staff and programming that we have. It's not going to be to add additional, and the majority of it will be to maintain current. And then we've had a lot of questions about the questions. What happens if a question doesn't pass? So if the first question fails on the tax levy at cap plus adjustments, the budget goes to the town council, that question. They review the general fund tax levy and they can decide if they want to make cuts to it. That would be in discussion with us. We would have to present a lot of information to them, and they would make their decision if they wanted to cut anything more out of the budget. If the second question fails, anything that's in it is cut with no recourse. We cannot reallocate from other funds. Even if we got an additional grant from the federal government in July, I would not be able to bring items in that second question back because the taxpayer had voted no to them. So that is an important difference between the 2 questions. And then we go to our next steps.
And over the next several board meetings, moving into March and then April, you're going to hear more and more. The goal, obviously, will be to make sure that every member of the community, every taxpayer who is eligible to vote, will have a firm understanding of what is going into this budget, what is going to be on the ballot, and certainly be able to make an informed decision and ensure that we have been as comprehensive in our approach as possible. Hopefully by the end, you'll all roll your eyes saying, we got it, Ray. We know what to do. So what that means is February 7th, we will continue the second of our presentations with regards to the development of the budget. We were very high level today because there are still decisions that we have to make along with the board and the administration, that it would be premature for us to put any details for public view at this time. But as we approach February 7th and February 28th, we will include more and more details regarding known expenditures, sources of revenue, and try to calculate as many of the details as possible based upon certain assumptions. And as we get more information, we'll take the assumption out and replace it with the known. By February 28th, the budget presentation will include our preliminary budget and areas that will be considered for the second question. So that will be both those areas that will be part of our status quo budget, part of our existing resources that will be moved into a second question that will require voter approval to continue to exist next year, as well as any additional areas for enhancement if the board agrees that we should move in that direction. We will not have state aid or tax levy details at that point, but once again, we will have greater estimates that we will work from. By March 7th, we must approve a preliminary budget that will be presented to the county office, and by that time, we will have state aid adjustments. We will have any healthcare projections finalized, and that tentative budget will then be voted on by the board and presented to the county office. That presentation that evening will also include the final amount and second question description. So within 6 weeks, we're going to move mountains. By March 28th, we will hold our public hearing in order to finalize the Board of Education's responsibility to develop a budget for the upcoming school year. So once the March 28th public hearing and final budget is voted on, then the responsibility has shifted from the Board of Education and the administration and will reside in the hands of the taxpayers. So between March 28th, April 18th, and the 25th, we will have a number of opportunities for the public to engage in presentations regarding the budget, webinars, in person, whatever way we can continue to inform our public about what constitutes our budget for next year and what they will be voting on in April. And then, of course, by April 25th, on Election Day, polls will open at 7 a.m. through 8 p.m., at which time members of the public will vote both on the Board of Education members who will be running, as well as the vote on the operating budget for next year. As we've mentioned over and over again, we want to make sure that our public is secure and comfortable with the information that is provided. We don't want to limit it only to these public presentations at the Board of Education meetings or even in the community, as I had mentioned, but we have also created a school budget website and information portal, which can be accessed via our website, or you could scan the QR code on the screen in order to gain access. That portal will be updated as we continue to add. Look at that. I was talking the whole time and not advancing the slides. No one said anything. So the QR code will include all the details regarding the budget as we release them to the public. So we will not have all the details that are going to be presented in the March budget at this time because, as I mentioned, we're not there yet. But with each presentation that we do at the board, we will then transfer that information into the portal. That way we can ensure that there's consistent, accurate information that everyone will have access to, and certainly we will always remain available to answer any questions, and we will include a question and answer form on the portal as well. So if you have questions that we haven't answered, we could certainly post those onto that portal. So that concludes the formal presentation, but I would like to use the opportunity to open the discussion with the full board with any questions or comments.
I'd like to start the two-question process. It defeats half of the purpose we made for switching the election, which was to make it easy for voters to understand what they were voting for. More concerning about it is what we can and cannot put into that second question. we can't put anything in there that's mandated. We can't put special ed, we can't put transportation. We can't even put, not that we would, all extracurricular activities, because some of those are mandated by law. So we're going to get into a really weird system where we're going to have to get very specific about what we put, but also vague enough that we have some flexibility. I don't know exactly how we're going to get to that point. Because if it goes down, it's another 30 positions, give or take, and that's not something this district can afford. After last year, I don't think there's appetite for it, but we can't predict what the voters are going to do.
I do want to just ensure it's clear, the two questions wasn't my idea. The state of New Jersey, when implementing the public vote on school budgets in April, did make a decision that it would be a two-part system, so that the first vote would be intended to be the base budget, that for whatever reason they thought would fit in a 2% cap, under 2% tax levy cap. But unfortunately, with the diversity of districts in the state of New Jersey, the tax levy impacts each school budget differently, and therefore that implication that we would be able to fit it all in the first question, unfortunately, is not accurate for us for this coming year. Hopefully, in the future, we would be relieved of that if we are able to secure public support of our budgets. But at this stage, unfortunately, we are not in that position. I think the other piece, as you had mentioned, is that the non-mandated aspects of the second question are the details that we are still working to secure with the county and Department of Education guidance, so that we can make sure that it's as clear to the taxpayers and clear to the school community what's, quite frankly, what's at risk if it is not approved, but also mindful, as indicated, that we still want to make sure that we have the ability to make decisions that will allow us to continue the operation of the school district. But there's no question that if that second question does not pass, it will unfortunately not be able to fulfill those priorities as I stated.
As far as, when we were making the decision to move to April, the two-question rule was not in effect. The state...
Well,
No,
it was?
it was, but it's just we're one of the first
It didn't apply to
districts-
anybody?
Well, we're one of the first districts to move back to April.
Right.
So no one, like when we were going places and I was going with Dana and people were like, what, wait, do you have to do two questions? And then they would look into it and get back to us and say, yes, you do have to do two questions. The first was like, no, you're going to April, you won't have to. But then as everyone started to really look into it, they were like, no, you still do have to do the two questions.
Wonderful.
Yeah. But we are just one of the first districts. We're not the only, but there are districts that are moving back to April, and you will see that in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
It's inevitable.
Any other?
So I'm assuming that a three question is not a choice?
We could ask 11 questions if we wanted to. We shouldn't.
I'm
but-
just because this is sort of a serious question. We are limited to two questions, correct, on the board?
No.
On the vote?
No.
Because I'm wondering if the wording would be clearer if, part one is the 2%, part two is in order for us to maintain current programming, not cut any positions, not cut any programming, vote for part two. And part three, if you'd like to add some of the things that we so desperately need, vote for part three. Is that a choice? Is that something that we could think about or talk to somebody about?
No, it's definitely a choice that we can discuss as a board. We can have three questions, yes.
Just because I think it's hard to look at that question and understand that without the maintaining, you will be losing these positions. I hope that we have so many people viewing from home. We've had so many more people at the board meetings over this past, year and a half, and this is, I think, probably one of the most important ones. So I just want the message to be clear of what we're asking of the constituents.
If we did do two questions, the second question would state to maintain the following, and then the second part of that question would be to add, like it would say additional, one would say maintain.
And
So
I
it's
imagine that would be
just-
contingent on the second one passing. Like, we couldn't,
Oh, no, it's like a referendum, so you can pass different, like,
right,
you can pass.
but we
like-
could also link them. Like, you couldn't add without maintaining.
Well, if we do it in the second question, it would be together, but if we
Right.
add another question, they would not be linked, they would be separate questions. So someone could vote for the budget, not vote to maintain, and then vote to add. That could happen. And again, if that happened, I would have to add whatever was in question 3 and cut whatever was in question 2. I couldn't say, well, the voters said to add, but now I have to cut people. I really don't want to cut staff and then add. I would have to do that because it's what the taxpayers voted for.
I want to repeat a few key points that we've talked about. We talked about last year, we talked about today, but just because I'm hoping that people are watching now or will watch, I agree with Layla, and I'm sure everyone feels this. This is the most important vote for our residents and our parents and our taxpayers. So just a few things. For the last 10 years, the taxes have been the same at around 2%, a little bit over, which is half of what taxpayers were paying in the decade or more before. So instead of paying 4.9% on average, taxpayers have been paying 2% on average for the past 10 years. As a result, our students have $37 million less money for the district to spend on them. That's a lot of money that taxpayers have not had to pay. And last year, we cut $2.3 million from our budget that resulted in cutting some staff, some of whom were teachers, but thanks to Dr. Gonzalez and Patty and Dana, we were able to avoid or minimize, I guess, the harm to the students. So I just want to state my position that maintaining is not good enough. I just want to make it public that I think that what we have been doing for the past 10 years, because of the 2% cap, there's no one to blame per se, is that we have been shrinking educational opportunity and services for our students. $39 million worth, if the tax rate just stayed the same, the average of 4.9%. And so my position is that I want this town to provide, to make up for that over time, such that we are not simply maintaining services which are already, at skeletal level, but that we're actually providing more academic services, more programs for our students, so that they can, whatever it is that our students feel is best for our students, whether it's language programs, STEM. I mean, we can all, list we'll defer to the students and Dr. Gonzalez. So I appreciate the fiscal conservatism of the 2% plus 2.57%, which is just to maintain and maybe a little bit extra, a couple of counselors that we desperately need or other services that we desperately need. And again, I defer to Dr. Gonzalez and the administration and the teachers. But I think our students deserve better. I think that investing in education is the best thing and the best place for our tax money to go to. It directly impacts our children. And I just want to state my position that I wish we were actually increasing it, because I think 2.5% is just not enough for what they deserve.
I'd like to note on that too. So when the state froze the districts at the 2%, every district was different. Their tax rate was different. So if a district that was a very similar size to Westfield, and I may have some experience with this, their tax rate was much higher when that froze. They've been building off of that much higher tax basis all these years. The state didn't go around and say, well, you guys all spend around this much, so we'll equalize it, how much you're spending. So some districts are spending a lot more per pupil because they were frozen at much higher amounts. So it's definitely affected Westfield, the level of taxes where you were at, where it froze. That's what has contributed a lot to this.
Thank you. And that directly
hurts our students. I just want to kind of redirect this, that this is not money that goes into the board's pocket, this is not money that goes into administrators' pockets, this is money that directly impacts our students and their ability to learn and go to college or wherever they want to go after high school, compete in the marketplace. There are so many advancements in technology and applied sciences, and I mean, the list can go on, but there are other schools that are at the same socioeconomic levels or at the same grade, what is it, H, I, or J, in the student hire, in the NJSB listing, that have more advantages than our students. And my view is that we're very fortunate as a town to be able to afford to invest more in our students. And, again, my position is the best investment of taxpayer dollars is in education for our children.
So to your point, Sahara, I just want to make sure everybody understands that when they see that 2% and the 2.57%, that's a minimum of what we would be asking just to maintain. So that's to maintain, but that would be a minimum of what we would be asking. Because I agree with you that we need to start to bring back so many things that were glossed over the last 10 years or so.
Sahar, it might not be, the dollar amount combining questions 1 and 2 is the minimum of what we need to proceed. But if we get an increase in state aid or healthcare this year works out better, that top line number in question 2 might be smaller.
That's correct.
But we need the total dollar amount. It just might not be
Okay,
what
understood.
we're
but
asking the
just
voters for.
So that number isn't what's stuck in people's head, that percent isn't that what's stuck in people's head, that's to maintain based on what we currently know,
Yes.
which of course could change, but that's a minimum of what we're looking for.
Yeah,
as a
that's
percent.
based off of, I believe, a 0% increase in state aid and a worst reasonable case scenario for healthcare.
Correct. That's a flat state aid, and that is what I'm anticipating healthcare right now, but again, the numbers are tentative, so I'm waiting for final.
So I guess the question from my fellow board members is, why are we simply seeking to maintain? Why don't we try to add? Why don't we, if we're going to ask the taxpayers to increase taxes, and we're going to be as transparent as possible about where the money goes, why aren't we asking to make things better, not simply to maintain?
I mean, I would say we need more information. I think no one is saying, I agree with you and Sonal as well, that we need to start adding back slowly. That's the intention. But we don't have enough information about what we're getting this year to determine what we need to ask for in a reasonable way for the community, where it's not going to be, we need this large amount right now. And then I think, and I'm sure Mike can speak to this more from finance.
Yeah,
I
finance
do
on
want to
Friday
address,
did address
I
that.
have it as part of my report, so I might be repeating myself. But during the Finance Committee meeting this past Friday, the numbers we're looking at are preliminary at this point. We don't know, as mentioned a couple of times, we don't know what the state aid is going to be. So we've seen this 4.57 number. If, for example, we got a couple million extra in state aid that we're expecting, we might be able to make that number lower and add services. Maybe we don't know that, we don't have all the information yet to make a decision. But when we did have our Finance Committee meeting, one of the areas that was discussed that came out of that is the intention to look at how can we expand programs, specifically in the academic area. We understand from many of the people that have come up to the podium over the past year how we want to focus in on the academics. Not that the athletics or the arts aren't important, as we know from the past, and all the people that have come to the podium, but really focusing on academics. And one of the thoughts that came up was looking at the Achieve program and the interventionists in the middle school program that can help a whole range of students, and look at other programs that were discussed at a high level, STEM or engineering. We haven't made decisions on them yet. We don't know what the budget numbers are, but this is certainly the focus area of the Finance Committee and working with Patty and ultimately Dr. Gonzalez.
Yeah, I'll piggyback off that. Sitting on the committee, we're presenting right now a maintained budget, but I don't want there to be a suggestion that either the administration isn't willing to listen to a request to increase. We did talk quite a bit at our finance committee meeting about what do we do on top of this? What do we do if we can? And yes, guidance came up, achieve came up. We actually asked, I think I actually asked Patty, I said, look, tell me what the top 5 things that didn't make the maintain cut are, and let's get them on the table. Because if, depending upon how the numbers work out, let's look at these things in exactly kind of to Layla's point, a managed growth situation. I don't think maintaining is the way to go either, if we can do it. We need to do it the right way, and I don't know that there was too much disagreement with that on the board, and frankly from the administration. The challenge, certainly I asked, we all asked Patty from the staff, is yes, give us what your operating budget looks like, but dream big too, right? And it doesn't mean you get all your dreams in one budget or 2 or 5, but having an idea of what the wish list looks like certainly helps when numbers come in differently and you can start figuring out what to add. So I think that is the approach. It's certainly the approach I'd prefer to see, whether you do it in 2 or 3 questions. I guess there's probably pros and cons to each, which we'd have to think through. I kind of like a 3rd question, but I also see why kind of keeping it to 2 might also be beneficial. I mean, there's only so many questions you're going to put before a group of voters. I'm just going to add one other thing. Just, a lot of the issues that we see here, and if you look at the budget presentation, it shows a extreme lack of flexibility on the part of really any school board and school district to plan ahead, especially with that cap. Significant percentages for salary and benefits, significant percentages for things that are just simply required. When the bulk of your budget is eaten up for things you have to do, it becomes that much more difficult to do the things you want to do and to expand, which is why, the move to April, as much as it has pros and cons, makes a lot of sense, because it gives the voters that opportunity to say, hey, look, I get it. I get that there are some constraints, but you're proposing things that are very, very important to us. And, direct democracy is direct democracy. That's, I don't know that you can ask for more of that. And certainly things like guidance and student services as a general matter writ large. As I talk to folks on the PTO, I said on these committees, these are the things that parents are talking about. These are the things that students are talking about, most importantly, and these are the things that we should find a way to provide. So I don't, there's no way I think we leave this at, let's just keep what we're doing. And let's hope that the way things shake out, we can start adding a few things on next couple of presentations.
Yep. It's also important to note that we have to know where we are and know where we want to go, and then figure out how to get there. But if this first budget to maintain came in significantly higher, pick a number higher, that wasn't palatable to us as a board, the idea of adding programs was not going to happen this year. We're in a spot where it's worse than it should be, but better than the worst case scenario, so we can start talking and figuring out priorities and when to sequence things in.
Right. Another part of just to that point, another part of kind of educating the public as to where we are and why we're talking about a lot of doom and gloom, but there's also a lot of things that we've done in the past that have put us in better shape to some extent than other districts. And I'll point to the health insurance. I mean, if you read the articles, that where the state health program is, we're talking about well over 10, 15% increases in health. Our numbers are far half that, I think. I mean, if that. And that's because there was a lot of fiscal prudence and a lot of planning on the part of past finance committees, past boards, and certainly Dana and now Patty, to make sure that we were doing the right things for our health expenses. So those are things that we're not, I'm not saying we're not sweating it out, but we're certainly not sweating it out to the extent other districts are. The other thing is it's not as easy, and look, this is my second go around now for the budget process, so I did a lot of learning the first time. It's not as easy to move things around as people might look at, right? In our household budgets, right, if you've been saving up for a vacation and something happens, the car breaks down and you need an extra couple of bucks to fix it, you take it out of the vacation fund, you take it out of this. That's not how these budgets work. Right? In multiple levels, it's not how it works. I mean, we can't take from a capital reserve or a maintenance reserve and just fund something, right? Why do you have to can't you take a couple $100,000 for a maintenance reserve and keep a couple teachers? It doesn't work that way. And these funds, as they get put in, are very restricted in ways that even this complicated explanation is oversimplified. So there's a lot that goes to it. And the fact that we have a talented group of people here who can, sort of work through these gymnastics and make it all work and put it together is an asset. But sometimes it's easy to look at these numbers and say, well, let's just shift this and shift that, but it's just not as simple. I'm not asking anybody to cry for us, like we all ran for this and they get paid for this, right? But it's just we're trying to educate on a vote, but we should also educate on the process so people understand why we have to go things about a way that may very well seem very counterintuitive, and certainly did to me at some point.
Sorry, can you hear me? Two things. One, I agree with Sahar. I don't think that we need to cap at the 4.9%. I think that's what I hear you saying, that the average is 4.9%, but we do have a community that has always been in support of education. We very rarely have not passed our budget in the years that I've lived here since I was 4 years old. I taught here. We've always had a great success with our budgets. There were years that we were at 6 and 7%. I'm not necessarily proposing that we do 6 or 7%, but I don't think that we should limit ourselves. I have confidence that this community will support us if we properly communicate what we're looking for, and we're really lucky in that sense. So we need to make sure that we're, working under the proper view of the community. And then the second thing is, I heard that the 2-question format doesn't necessarily work, for it wasn't necessarily, I guess, considered when it was structured, that it would work for all districts. So is that something that we can put to policy in terms of reaching out to legislation and seeing how we can start communicating those concerns, and maybe look to, listen, it could be 10 years from now, but maybe we can get that changed. So that's under policy, right? Legislation?
Legislation, governance, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe we can start looking into who we need to contact to start working on that problem. Maybe we don't have to have 2 questions 10 years from now. I don't know. 3.
I have a question, even though I don't really want to go down this road. I have a question about if the first question were not to pass, it goes to the town council, and it says on here for review and possible cuts. Does that mean they could pass it as is?
Yes. So if both questions were to fail, you would hope the town wouldn't come back and say, well, we know you're cutting the X number of staff members, but we're also going to cut another, 10. So, but yeah, it is at their discretion. They can cut $100, $200, up to $100,000, it's going to be a discussion.
Discussion with the council members and their BA as well?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So all of the information would go to the township manager. They would start to review it, and then there would be a process with that.
And what would the turnaround time on that have to be?
It's quick. I'd have to look it up because it hasn't been done in so long. But
our fiscal year starts July 1.
Yeah,
it's the end of
I would say
April at that
it's
point.
probably within a month that that would be if the question were to go down, the information I would have to get to them would move very quickly. Then it's up to them if they want to bring someone else to in to help mediate. That used to happen back in the day. There were people that kind of specialized in that would work with districts that had defeated budgets with the township to work out what was going to be cut, or the negotiation. But we're hopeful that the town would be very supportive of our budget.
I believe there is an appeal process if the council were to be overly harsh with their cuts, whether to make a point or because they truly think it's the right thing to do.
Yeah,
we could appeal to the commissioner.
Again, as part of our budget process will be to keep the town council apprised of everything that we're doing, so nothing should be a surprise to them either. In terms of our election day, the questions, the process, they should know everything by April 2.
And just so everyone's informed, for question 2, if it's voted no, there is no appeal process.
There's no appeal process. It's considered pretty much like a referendum. So if it's voted no, it's that the taxpayers do not want what's in the question. There's no recourse to bring any of it back for a year, and meaning a year that we would be adding it to a question again to be voted on. So it's not like after a year we can just, we're going to have a lot of leeway in our budget with a 2% cap to just bring it all back if that second question fails. There won't be. It's not going to just generate itself. We'll be doing a second question again to try to bring back those staff members that we need.
So I just want to go back to the point that Rob made about gradual growth, which I support the concept. The 4.57% that, and I know it's gonna shift, but let's, for purposes of today's presentation, we're around 4.7%, 4.57%. That maintains what we have, and
That's the status quo.
that's the status quo.
That's not adding anything.
So that's not adding the guidance counselors or
No,
the chief?
that's just the status quo. That's to maintain what we currently have in district.
Okay, so I
At a
just,
future presentation, what we, like Ray said, we wanted to see where the board was at in terms of supporting going beyond the 4.57 and
Okay.
adding on other.
okay, great. So again, the guidance counselors being possibly something, the chief teachers, just to be clear again to fellow board members, I think we all agree that the guidance counselors are not, those are fundamental needs in elementary schools, and my understanding is even at the middle schools. The achieve teachers are there to assist our many students who are no different than any other students across the country who have experienced learning loss because of 2 years of a pandemic, most of which they spent online. So again, a necessity. I don't see it as something that is kind of moving us forward. It's more just mitigating the shrinkage, the financial shrinkage we've experienced over 10 years. So I hope that in our next meeting, we'll be able to hear more about what the administration wants. And I do think it's the staff and the administration that should tell the board, here's our priorities. You all are managing the district. You're working with the students. You're the experts. But I think that as a board, and I think as a community, our kids deserve to gradually make this district better until we can get back to where we were, which, at least in numbers, is $39 million, which obviously we're not asking for that this year or all next year, but we are spending $39 million less on our kids, and that can translate into an enormous amount of opportunity. So, okay, I think I've beat that dead horse.
So, again, I wanted to use the presentation as the opportunity to do exactly this, which is just to get feedback from the board as to the direction the administration should go. What I'm hearing is that there seems to be consensus that the board would have an appetite for expanding beyond the status quo and would seek additional information to know what that looks like and with more specificity. So we will certainly be prepared to do that and are already working with the administration to provide that information in future meetings. I do want to reiterate that, and I appreciate the statement that it should be coming from the administration, the teachers, the community. So we are fielding as much of the feedback as we can, but we also recognize that we are also trying to do so in a way that doesn't break the system. There's just, there reaches a point where we can't put too much on the system all at once because we may not then have the capacity to implement it. So when we're talking about priorities, we're talking about those things that are student-centered, those things that are program-oriented, and those that have the greatest chance of success. Because in some cases, adding more teachers or programs without having the facilities to do so, unfortunately just sets us up for even greater challenges. So those are all the conversations that are happening internally. They're happening through strategic planning, but certainly this gives us great, comfort and encouragement moving forward, so I appreciate it.
Yeah. And we do have to respect the taxpayers. People, yes, we had increases of 4.9% over a decade, as high as 7%. But every year that was an increase. Every single time it was more than they paid the year before. Even at 2%, it's 2% more than they paid the year before. So the rate may have shrunk, but the dollar amount did not. And we do have to respect that when asking for more. Whether it's 2.5% or 4.5% or 7.5%, we have to respect that we're asking people to pay more when people may not be earning more proportionally. So just something we have to keep in mind. We are in a spot where we do have to ask, but we have to be careful and we have to be respectful.
That concludes my report this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez. Patrick, do you have a report for us tonight?
I do. In the weeks following winter break, Westfield High School students have returned to their role of creating a tradition of excellence both in and outside the classroom. The Mile United Nations Club traveled to Hershey, Pennsylvania from January 6th to 8th. During this conference, students debate global issues while representing an assigned country. Westfield students won many awards, including Outstanding Research Paper, which was run by Miriam Manescu and Alex Nurnberg. Outstanding first-year delegate was won by Michael Fisher, Dylan Walsh, Haley Berger, and Daniel Flores. Premier Diplomat by Catherine O'Connor and Dylan Ma. Nominations to attend the Conference on National Affairs were Naya Wiskowski, Ananda Accardi, Pat Lanza, Emily Wilner, and Michael Fisher. Grace Kim and Emily Wilner were both elected as officers to run the conference for next year. I'm sorry, I just lost my place. The district band and orchestra night happened on January 10th and 11th. The chorus night will be happening tomorrow on the 18th. These nights highlight all the hard work the students across the district put into their performances. Author and biologist David Good recently spoke at Westwood High School about his experience reconnecting with his long-lost mother in the Amazon in 2011 and learning more about his native roots. On December 6th, Good discussed the need of preserving indigenous traditions with students in social studies and humanities classes at WHS. He also discussed his work studying the microbiome to better understand the special connection between bacteria and human health and development. Westfield High School students are preparing for midterms, which will be happening on January 26th through February 1st. The schedule can be found on the high school website under the testing tab. We wish all Westfield High School students the best of luck on their coming exams. Westfield's No Place for Hate Committee continues to create a school where prejudice, racism, and anti-Semitism are not allowed. To accomplish this, the committee will be reading the second volume of A Mouse, subtitled "And Here My Trouble Begins." This takes the reader from Auschwitz to the Catskill bungalows in Mouse 2. The compelling story. In Mouse 2, the compelling story are brought together. The author's description on his torturous connections with his father and the heartbreaking tale of survival against all obstacles. The No Place for Hate Committee at Westfield High School welcomes all Westfield High School students, staff, parents, and community members to join them on March 2nd from 7 to 8 p.m. for a community conversation on this complex and significant tale. The book is also an opportunity for an insightful and useful discussion on the topic of cultural sensitivity and how we can all work together to create a more tolerant, united school, community, and nation. Overall, I, along with the rest of the Board of Education, wish Westfield High School students the best of luck on their midterm exams, and we hope that the third marking period is as good as the previous two. Thank you, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Patrick. You guys have been busy. All right. Now we'll move on to committee reports. Kristen, do you have a SIP report for us tonight?
I do. SIP met on January 5th, and some of the highlights from our meeting include we spent a good portion of our meeting reviewing a proposal for a new entrepreneurship course called EntreX, which is short for Entrepreneurship Experience, and it's a comprehensive introductory course in the knowledge, skills, and experiences needed to be a successful entrepreneur. The course offers dual enrollment with the University of Delaware, and the goal is to offer EntreX in September 2023. The next step will be to review the curriculum provided by the University of Delaware. If we move forward with this exciting new venture, there will be three main costs. One is a $500 cost to the participating students, which is tuition to the University of Delaware to enroll in the course, and arrangements can be made for any student who is in need of financial assistance, as we do not want the tuition to create a barrier for any student who's interested in the course. Two, there's a $1,900 cost to the district to train the WHS teacher assigned to teaching EntreX. University of Delaware will provide such training along with continued training and support throughout the school year. And then lastly, if there are less than 10 students enrolled, then the district would have to pay a $1,500 curriculum fee. But in speaking with the counselors and the students, it seems that there's a great deal of interest in the course. And Warren Hines, the practical arts supervisor, expects to run 2 half-year courses equating to approximately 40 to 50 enrolled students. So if this estimation is correct, then the $1,500 curriculum fee would be waived. We also reviewed several revised curricula under our practical arts and mathematics departments, and all of those are on tonight's agenda for first reading. We reviewed multiple overnight field trips, also on tonight's agenda for the board approval, and we continued our review of multiple policies. Lastly, I'm excited to report that our extracurricular audit is going well. We are almost finished compiling a comprehensive list of the athletic teams, clubs, and activities, field trips, and assemblies offered at each of our district's 10 schools. And then from there, administration plans to compare and contrast the lists to see how we can achieve consistency across the district, and also see where the district may want to adjust or add programming to better meet the needs of our students. And finally, our next meeting is scheduled for January 26th.
Thank you, Kristen. Any questions for Kristen?
I'm excited to see the audit. Thank you to the curriculum committee and to the administrators and staff. With the entrepreneurship class, will that increase is there a cost associated other than the $1,500 fee that depends on enrollment, or is that a what's the right
No,
word?
we're going
Cost
to
neutral?
use existing staff.
Or will it will use existing staff?
Correct,
Okay,
yeah,
great.
it's using existing staff, so the only costs are, the $500 is to the students, actually the students will be paying that. To the district, it'll be a $1,900 cost to provide the professional development.
But that $500 is for 3 credits from the University of Delaware.
Correct, yep.
And I believe students can take the course without applying for the college credits. Not that I can see anybody doing that, but
That piece, I'm not sure, I don't know that we covered that. Did we cover that? We will ask that question. I'm not sure about that.
I'm sorry, one other follow-up. It would be an elective class, is that correct?
Correct. It's a semester course, and it would be an elective offered to juniors and seniors, correct, upperclassmen? Upperclassmen.
Okay.
all right. Mike, do you have a facilities and finance report for us?
Yes, I do. I will be somewhat duplicative in what was discussed, but I just want everyone to understand what was discussed during the meeting. We did review the current 2022-2023 budget. Overall, we're monitoring the special education costs, which also include transportation, which are running a little high, but we're ensuring that we do not run a deficit. And as noted earlier, our health insurance projected cost is expected to cost less than the amount budgeted for the year. So Patty continues to monitor that to make sure we stay on budget. As we noted during the presentation, we had an extensive discussion preparing for the 2023-2024 budget. We went over what the voting process is. The first vote will be for the state mandated cap. The budget will be the mandated cap. If it's voted down, it's going to go to the town council to approve or change the budget as needed. The second vote is a public question to maintain existing programs and avoid any layoffs or the possibility to add improvements. If the second question is voted down, as noted earlier, the programs and staff must be cut. There's no opportunity for these items to be added back. And as I brought up the question earlier, there's also no option for an appeal. And one of the benefits of this April election is that it does allow us to seek approval before we have the staff in place. So we know exactly, once we have our budget, that we're working to hire our staff and our expenses to the budget that was approved. So we know that up front. We also went through what the communications plan is. It's very important for us to make sure we get out the message both into the district as well as the whole community, so that they understand what these questions represent, what the 2 parts represent, what the budget will cover, what it will not cover. If they vote no, what the impact on the school district will be. And then we also discussed what we would like to see added to the budget. The committee, as we discussed couple minutes ago, we asked the district to gather information about what would be the cost to add the Achieve and Intermediate Educational Interventionist teachers to the second questions. We want to make sure any of the things that we do add are focused in on academics, but Patty did bring up, we're limited somewhat by space in what we can do. We can't go and add 3 new classes if we don't have classrooms available to go teach those classes in. So we're working within that constraint, but we are, the focus is any programs we do add would be academic related. And all the committee members were in agreement on that. For board meeting dates, we're going to be voting on revising the board meeting dates to comply with the budget and election calendars. So as we meet certain guidelines, for example, once we get the state aid in early March, I think March 7th is our budget vote, where we'll vote on that, our final budget, to go, because we'll have all the numbers at that point. So that's really it on the budget. Let me go into a couple other topics we discussed. Addressed the deteriorating facade at the Roosevelt School. There's going to be on the agenda, we're going to be approving this evening a capital reserve withdrawal of $35,407 for the initial payment for the Roosevelt facade renovation. This is really the first capital reserve withdrawal that we're taking to address this problem, to start to get an understanding of what the overall costs are. We have applied for a grant to address the Roosevelt facade project. We don't know yet what we're going to get for that grant or not, but as abundance of caution, we are going to move forward with the facade renovation, if you will.
Mike, just to interrupt you for a second. The grant we're applying for is a state ROD grant. ROD stands for Regular Operating District. They're grants that come out regularly. Every couple of years, the state releases a new batch of funding. Normally, you apply and the state has to approve anything before you spend $1 on it. We think we'll qualify for a waiver to that process and can start applying. Correct?
That's correct, and besides the fact that we can't wait, we need to start moving on the facade.
The project is urgent, but Roosevelt is safe.
Roosevelt is safe.
We need to stress that
Yes.
over and over and over again.
There's no imminent threat or danger. We're just we're operating under an abundance of caution. But again, I'm not going to delay the project if the state doesn't come out with the full specs on the grant for another couple months. I feel that they will accept our application still. They've done it in the past, and hopefully we'll get funding for it. And if we don't, we have to do it anyway. So it was budgeted out of capital reserve without the ROD grant, because we didn't know about that yet. But obviously, it would be great if we could get the state to fund 40% of it.
And that's what I have here. Out of an abundance of caution, we will proceed with the project whether or not we receive the funding. And just also, I guess really out of an abundance of caution, we're temporarily putting the HVAC Phase 2 project on hold to ensure we can budget appropriately to address the facade issue, which has a higher priority. One of the other topics we discussed was the Lincoln soil. The soil testing took place at Lincoln School. We don't have results yet on what the test results revealed. Synergy, who's the vendor that did the results, is going to provide, once we get back, any costs associated if we need to remediate that soil or not. We're also putting out a food service request proposal. We're in year 4 of our 5-year contract. We just periodically reviewing was recommended to us that we should go and take a look to see if we can potentially benefit by renewing our contract this year. We're not necessarily an issue with the food, but we're just going out to market to just see what, from a cost standpoint, whether we can benefit or not. Finally, we're looking at the copier consolidation. Right now, we have 2 vendors for our copiers. We're looking to have a single vendor who can really provide us not only cost savings, but just also additional benefits. We'll be all on the same software, which minimizes upgrades, and we'll also have cloud-based printing. So depending upon where a teacher is within the district, if they're in the high school or they travel to another school, whatever machine they're near within a school, they can swipe their card and print from any location. And that was it for the finance meeting. We have our next finance meeting on February 3rd. And I would like to point out for a donation we'll be accepting this evening of $293.70 from the Lincoln School PTO to paint the wall in the multipurpose room at Lincoln School. And that's my report. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Mike. Just a question mainly for clarification for the public, because we're talking about the budget. What would be required if the school, or if the district, via the board and the administration, were to seek to expand the programs in a way that requires more physical space? We've heard a lot of parents ask for full-day kindergarten. That's been a perennial request. And there may be other programs or recommendations that arise from the strategic planning process that the district's undergoing, and hopefully all the parents are involved, at every opportunity. But what would be required, what's just generally for us to increase our infrastructure, to have more physical space?
That's an issue that we'll have to address within long-range planning. It's certainly been discussed ongoing, especially the need for pre-K. It's not something we're going to address specifically within this budget cycle. Members of the board are aware of it, and it's on the radar to go and address in long-range planning, whether we're looking at pre-K, whether we're looking at expansion of a particular school to go and provide additional classrooms, as well as add additional programs. So that's a longer-term goal, where we'll probably have to have a bond that we would have the public vote upon for such a larger initiative that's beyond what our typical budget would include.
Okay, yeah, that's just what I wanted to clarify, is that's more of a bond referendum that is separate from our request for increasing the tax levy for purposes of operations.
That's correct. Something to that scale would have to be a referendum. But again, in moving to the April vote, it does kind of synchronize with, if we were to do a referendum for kindergarten, then we could put on the April a second question for the teachers that we would need to fund additional classrooms that we build starting in July. Those teachers would start in July. So the April vote just moves everything. It'll move more smoothly. If we do have a referendum, we need to add teachers. So it was a smart decision by the district.
Any other questions?
All right, thank you, Mike. Layla or Sonal, do you guys have a policy report for us tonight?
Sure. So the policy committee met on January 5th, and you'll see tonight on the agenda policies for first reading 1 through 15, and for second reading 1 through 5. We also are SIP reviewed policy 2432 was called school-sponsored publications, and it's being replaced with 5722, which is journalism. That was on the recommendation of the SIP committee. We're asking for that to be approved for first reading tonight as well. In our policy meeting, we talked about several policies, 0151 and 0153, having to do with April election and board election and voting dates and leadership voting. We also reviewed sources of pending legislation as per our board goal, where we can go to find information about things that are going on that are pending that would affect us, would affect our district, would affect our board. Our next meeting is scheduled for, I think, February 2nd. And we will, among other policies, we'll also be reviewing policies regarding the staff use, possession or distribution of substances, as well as the policies regarding student substance abuse. And that's really it. So, do you have anything to add? Yeah.
Now that personnel is part of the policy committee, we discussed the process for the annual non-tenure review process. So just keeping in mind the board's role in the personnel matters, we decided or recommend that the administration compile a list of feedback for all non-tenured staff indicating the school position and years within the tenure acquisition cycle. And board members will receive that list of non-tenured staff with names, positions, and locations. Dr. Gonzalez will highlight anyone who's on the cusp of receiving tenure or is not going to be recommended for renewal. So that was our general recommendation for that process.
All right, any questions on that? It is a departure from our normal process, but a worthwhile one, I believe. All right, if there are no questions for any of the committee chairs. During this portion of the meeting, district residents and staff are invited to address the Board of Education on agenda action items only. The board requests that individuals state their name and address for the record, the specific action items they are commenting on, and asks that all remarks be directed to the board president or designee, not to individual board members or staff. The board asks that the members of the public be courteous and mindful of the rights of other individuals when speaking. Specifically, comments regarding personnel matters are discouraged and cannot be responded to by the board. Students and employees have specific legal rights afforded by the laws of New Jersey, and the board bears no responsibility nor will be liable for any comments made by members of the public. If a matter concerning a district staff member is of interest or concern to a resident, the matter should be referred to the responsible building principal, the superintendent of schools, or the Board of Education, either by telephone, letter, or email. Although the board may not respond to items raised during the public forum, all public comments will be considered, and each speaker's statement will be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes in duration. Mr. George?
Kyle George, Short Hills Court. Excuse me. I want to talk about an item on the finance agenda tonight. You're withdrawing 35 grand.
I'm sorry, point of order, point of privilege, point of order. We need an actual address.
Yeah, I mean, he's given it many times in the past, but.
I know.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry.
Just your address again.
Okay, can I enforce that for everybody?
Yes.
Okay.
Everybody who does that, yeah.
All right, well, been many people who you haven't enforced that of, but okay. Kyle George, 605 Short Hills Court. I want to talk about an item on the finance agenda tonight. Withdrawing 35 grand to fix the exterior at Roosevelt Intermediate School. When you were talking about this a few moments ago, you said that this was, quote, out of an abundance of caution, and also, quote, Roosevelt is safe. This is extremely ironic, since Roosevelt was the site of the teacher overdose on fentanyl recently. I'm very curious when you will withdraw the funds to fix the safety issues on the inside of the school as well as the outside.
Thank you, Mr. George. All right, seeing nobody else. I ask the board to approve the meeting minutes of the December 13th, 2022, January 9th, 2023, January 10th, 2023, and the executive session minutes of December 13th, 2022, and January 10th, 2023. Can I have a second? Thank you, Sonal. Any questions? All right, all in favor? Any opposed?
I abstain because I wasn't a board member.
Thank you. All right, governance.
All right, I'd like to move items A, B, and C under the governance section of tonight's agenda. Can I get a second? Sonal?
Yep, all right, it's been seconded by Sonal. Patty?
Sahara Aziz. Yes.
Yes.
Rob Bonaccio.
Yes.
Michael Beelan.
Yes.
Brendan Galligan.
Yes.
Kent Diamond.
Yes.
Layla Morelli. Yes. Sonal Patel.
Yes.
Kristen Sonic Schmeltz.
Yes.
Mary Wickens.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Personnel?
I'd like to move items A to R under the personnel section of tonight's agenda. Can I have a second?
Mary? All right.
Mary? Dr. Gonzalez, did you want to make a few comments?
Yes. Tonight I'm announcing with regret the retirement of 7 staff members who have given a total of over 180 years of service to the Westfield Public School District. Marilyn Pellicone is a well-known and highly regarded paraprofessional at Westfield High School, and for the last 20 years she has supported individual students with dedication and professionalism. Marilyn is mindful of giving her students sufficient opportunity for them to become more independent and encourages them to grow academically and socially. In addition, she regularly assists new paraprofessionals, offering them perspective and practical wisdom based on her experience. Allison Fiorino is retiring from her position as head secretary at Wilson after 7 years in that role. She started her career in Westfield 24 years ago as a paraprofessional at Franklin School, became a secretary there, and several years later advanced to the building's head secretary position. In all of her positions, Allison has been a positive, caring, and welcoming presence who makes every person who interacts with her feel valued and respected. She knows the name of every student and always has time to listen carefully when a child, parent, or staff member comes to the office. Mary Flannery has been a special education teacher at Westfield High School since 2007. She has held assignments in the Bridge and Prep programs as well as in-class support and resource room assignments. She has supported all of her students with enthusiasm, commitment, and dedication. Soon after coming to the high school, Mary became certified in social studies in addition to special education, which made her a valuable resource in both departments. Mary has enjoyed teaching humanities, global perspectives, as well as U.S. History 1 and 2 to her students, and by differentiating the instruction to fit her students, the subject matter became relevant and engaging. Pam Friedman has made a significant difference for Roosevelt students in her role as a computer technology education teacher. For 18 years, she has deepened her middle schoolers' technology skills. Students have been introduced to movie making and to the multiple uses of Photoshop. They have been excited to create a business and then produce a digital portfolio to present their business ideas. Just as important has been the instruction Pam has provided about the negative and harmful impacts of cyberbullying. Beyond the classroom, Pam has contributed to Roosevelt by offering tech support to her colleagues and by serving as a coordinator for the Black History Month assemblies and as an advisor to the yearbook and many other student activities. Another Roosevelt staff member who is retiring is Joe Marino. As a physical education teacher and coach for 36 years, Joe has been committed to teaching and enhancing lifetime physical fitness for his students and athletes. He has emphasized the use of fitness equipment to build cardiovascular endurance and muscle strength. Joe has been especially mindful of special needs students in his classes and has customized their experience in a physical education class so that they are successful along with their classmates. In addition to Joe's contributions as a coach through the years in baseball, soccer, basketball, and football, Joe has added to the Roosevelt community by being an intramural program director and by serving on numerous building committees, including INRS. Sue Lynn joined the Westfield schools as the payroll supervisor in 1987 and is a great asset to the district. She has consistently been a valuable resource for the staff as she is extremely knowledgeable about health benefits and the pension system and promptly assists anyone who has questions or needs help. Sue produces high quality and accurate work, which is crucial in her position. She has stayed abreast of the many changes in the law and in requirements that impact payroll and adapts her department well with changes that come from collective bargaining. A lasting contribution to all staff was Sue's creation of the annual health fair so that everyone would have access to the most current information. For 35 years, Andrea Lowe, the pre-K to 12 special education supervisor, has been a strong and consistent child advocate. She began as an LDTC at a number of the elementary schools in the district and then became the coordinator of her child study team until 2006, when she assumed the district supervisor's responsibilities. With her deep knowledge of the New Jersey law and statutes, the emphasis she places on clinical data, Andrea has led her department in creating innovative and challenging programs to provide the most appropriate services for students with special needs. In addition, the extended school year program has grown and flourished each summer under her leadership. Well-respected and sought after to offer her thoughts about solving complicated issues, Andrea's candor and integrity are benchmarks of her leadership. We wish all of these staff members a happy and healthy retirement.
Does anyone have any questions? Can we have a vote?
Sahar Aziz,
Yes.
Rob Bonaccio,
Yes.
Michael Beelen,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Kent Diamond,
Yes.
Layla Morelli,
Yes.
Sonal Patel,
Yes.
Kristen Sonic Schmeltz,
Yes.
Mary Wickens.
Yes.
Thank you. Facilities and Finance?
Ask the board to approve items A through Z in Facilities and Finance. Do I have a second? Kristen? I already covered the donation earlier. Is there any other questions someone may have?
All right.
Okay, ready for a vote?
Sahar Aziz,
Yes.
Rob Bonaccio,
Yes.
Michael Beelen,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Kent Diamond,
Yes.
Layla Morelli,
Yes, with the exception of item O, which I abstained from.
Sonal Patel,
Yes.
Kristen Sonic Schmeltz,
Yes.
Mary Wickens.
Yes.
Thank you. And policies?
I'd like to recommend for first reading policies 1 through 15, and for second reading policies 1 through 5. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Ken.
You ready for a vote?
Yes, sorry.
Sahar Aziz,
Yes.
Rob Bonaccio,
Yes.
Michael Beelen,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Kent Diamond,
Yes.
Layla Morelli,
Yes.
Sonal Patel,
Yes.
Kristen Sonic Schmeltz,
Yes.
Mary Wickens.
Yes.
Item C?
Sorry about that. I approve for first reading the repeal of the following policy as attached, number 2432, school sponsor publications. Can I get a second?
Second.
Ready?
Yep.
Sahar Aziz,
Yes.
Rob Bonaccio,
Yes.
Michael Beelen,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Kent Diamond,
Yes.
Layla Morelli,
Yes.
Sonal Patel,
Yes.
Kristen Sonic Schmeltz,
Yes.
Mary Wickens.
Yes.
All right. And curriculum?
I make a motion for the board to consider action items A through D under SIP. A is asking the board to approve several revised curricula in the math and practical arts for first reading. B is to approve several fine arts curricula for second reading. C asks the board to approve a series of overnight field trips. And D is to approve an intern student teacher at Wilson. Can I get a second? Sonal? Does anybody have any questions? Okay.
Sahar Aziz,
Yes.
Rob Bonaccio,
Yes.
Michael Beelen,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Kent Diamond,
Yes.
Layla Morelli, Sonal Patel,
Yes.
Kristen Sonic Schmeltz,
Yes.
Mary Wickens.
Yes.
All right. I ask the board to note the notes for the record. Any unfinished business? Any new business tonight? Liaison reports. All right.
So I went to the Union County Ed Services Commission meeting on Wednesday, and they too are working on strategic planning, and will be sending out a survey to hear what the districts want and need from them. So for those who aren't familiar, Union County Ed Services Commission is where we send many of our children who need out-of-district placement. They offer a variety of different services, and they specialize in autism and learning disabilities and behavioral disabilities. There are a variety of different programs, and they represent Union County, so we sit on the board. They also provide our busing. They do the contracting. They're our middleman, so to speak, for the busing contracts. So one of the things that they discussed was the cost of transportation and how, although they charge the lowest fee in the state, which is 4%, and the fee is not going to go up, however, due to rising costs, they're budgeting for more, and that all of the counties should be receiving a prorated rebate sometime in April. I don't know the amount, I don't know what we can count on, but some money is good money. So we'll take it. In addition, they talked about, again, with the strategic planning, things that we want and need. So besides the fact that we want and need cheaper transportation, which, would be magic at this point, I brought up how, it is so hard to have staff, find staff, especially for our students who are absent for an extended period of time, home instruction, and that is something that they currently provide for non-public school. They provide those services. So that was something that we talked about in all the districts, thinking about what are things that maybe Union County could help with. What could we ask of them? So it's just something to think about moving forward. And that's it. Any questions on that, or commission? No? Okay.
Yep.
So last week I attended the PTSO board meeting for the high school. Number of things going on. I have to say the high school PTSO has a group of parents and students and administrators working together in some very, very unique ways. And Patrick, our student representative, hinted at some of them, but it's pretty amazing to watch them all get together. So these board meetings are a group of parents who have the high school principal, Mrs. Fendis, and members of the Student Government Association all together in the same spot, talking about any one of a number of different things that are affecting the high school. And they're all working together to provide opportunities for school spirit and opportunities for students, for feedback and thank yous to teachers and staff, including improvements to staff lounges, including just different gifts that are given to staff, just little things to say thank you. And it sounds, I say the term little, but it's just so much work that this group puts together, working together from just different levels of people. Going into each one individually, would take forever, but the report is really just to take a shout out to this group of folks who are working very hard together to do everything they can for our students and for the faculty and staff who work very, very hard at the high school. Two things really quick to highlight. I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, there was a series sponsored by the PTSO, What I Wish I Knew Then. One of them a few days ago was for seniors who would speak with freshmen and sophomores. What I wish I knew then when I was a freshman, just to kind of help them out a little bit. The program was great, but one of the things that's really excellent to hear about is just how many students jump at the chance to volunteer for this and want to sit on panels and how they can help it. I mean, they've all got work. They've got, as we heard, midterms coming up, but most of these students could not pass up the opportunity to come and give a little bit of advice to their classmates. There will be another Wish I Knew When program coming out. I think they're shooting for the end of March. This would be for Westfield High School alumni, college students to come back and talk with seniors who are planning their future, whether that be college, whether that be trade schools, whether that be whatever it may be, to come back and give back and speak to them. The other thing to highlight that the PTSO does is provides information sessions of a similar nature for parents. They had a successful information session for junior class parents focused on the college experience and applications and all the rest of the things that will stress you out to no end. So a lot of work being done there. Just wanted to highlight all that and thank all of them for the time put in.
Any other liaison reports? I have one brief one. I sit on the executive committee of the New Jersey Interscholastic Athletic Association, and this past Sunday they had their Hall of Fame inductees, and there were 2 Westfield mentions of prior coaches. Sean Cherowich was a Westfield High School student who started a lacrosse club, which then became a varsity sport. As a coach, he went on to win 2 state titles and 4 sectional titles. He was named the Coach of the Year by the United States Lacrosse Association in 2012. and is inducted in the Hall of Fame in Elmwood Park, Westfield, and New Jersey now. And a posthumous award to Joe Freeman, coach in football, basketball, and baseball, for a combined 27 seasons. As a football coach, he won 5 state titles, 3 undefeated seasons in 1941, 44, and 47. Coached 33 All-State football players. His 1936 basketball team set a program record that lasted for 23 years. In baseball, he coached 5 All-State players, and in the first 3 years of its existence as a program, 5 of them made All-State. Won 4 Union County championships and a state title. And he then went on to coach a semi-pro football team in New Jersey in the 50s. So, of the 16 inductees, 2 Westfield references. And that's it for that lead. All right. During this portion of the meeting, members of the public are invited to address the board on any topic. Mr. George, are you coming back up? You're the only one here.
Kyle George, 605 Short Hills Court. We good? Okay. I was listening while commuting, so forgive me if I misheard, but you're telling us that this 2 questions element to the budget process is a surprise, and now things are even more dire? You all spent at least 5 meetings talking about and debating budget shortfalls and moving the BOE election and all that stuff. You sought advice from the BOE Council and other districts. You voted unanimously to move the vote and the budget process. I believe it was unanimous. And yet at no point in time did the 2 questions issue come up until now. As I thought I heard, that this is something that's been there, at least in some capacity. So how does this happen? And there's just going to be so much confusion about this when it comes time to put this to the voters. And I think that's going to cause a lot of problems, and not to mention there's, general voter apathy that you have to deal with, and, the fact that most economists agree we're going to enter a recession. This just seems like a complete mess now, and, that was my interpretation. So, just want to mention that. I'd also like to go back to the topic about the drug overdose at Roosevelt School. It'd be really great if one of you would please step up and introduce a motion to hire an independent investigator that's not associated with the school district, NJSBA, NJEA, or any of those usual elements, in order to restore confidence in our children's safety. As we've all seen in the news, I spoke up here last week about this already. A teacher overdosed on fentanyl at school in front of students. Fentanyl is an unbelievably dangerous substance. And I also mentioned when I spoke that as more information comes to light and talking to people, that there seems to be this general agreement that everybody knew that there was a problem, and yet looked the other way. And then over the past week, more, social media comments, take them for what they're worth. Some comments on social media seem to confirm the sentiment that everyone knew. Now, granted, we've all seen that people will spew whatever they want on social media, but there's enough here to warrant a thorough investigation by an independent, outside, impartial person. The district's policies require that even the slight suspect of a drug problem by a teacher, doesn't even specify in or outside of school, by the way, but it just says, a reason to believe must be reported, and action must be taken, a full and thorough investigation. It's what's prescribed in the policy. I mean, if all this is, where there's smoke, there's fire here, and there's so much here about how everyone knew, that I don't see how you can look the other way and not do something about this. And, I'm going to keep coming up here and talking about this until something's done. This is not optional. It's an obligation under policy. Doesn't just go away with the legal peril. must be fully investigated. So please, someone step up and do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. George. Yep. Anything you'd like to address?
Sure, I do want to address the two questions because it definitely was something that was not discussed last April. It was certainly something that throughout the conversation, our focus was on recognizing the inability for us to continue with a 2% cap and the need to move to an April election. We did not go into details, both in our presentations or in our exploration regarding the mechanics and the logistics of that. So I acknowledge that and I own that. However, during the fall, as we were preparing for this coming April, our investigation into the mechanics and the logistics did reveal that, and we shared that with the board and shared that with the public as soon as we knew. It doesn't change the outcome. It doesn't change the fact that our prior funding strategy relied on a hard 2% cap with no relief, but it certainly adds another layer, and I agree 100% that it adds a whole slew of challenges and complexities that make this already difficult task even more difficult. But I will say that in the presentation today and in the work of the Board of Education, the communication about the budget, communication about the second question, and the logistics of that remain a priority for us as an entity to be able to ensure that the public is fully informed about those details. I don't diminish the challenge, but we do recognize that it's something we're going to have to work on moving forward.
Sure.
I move to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All right, Ken. All in favor? Any opposed? All right.